off to our chamber chairman, Doug Burke. Doug, did we lose you?
I think we did.
It looks like Doug's internet might be frozen.
Okay, I'll see if I can coordinate with Doug over the phone. If Vicki, if you want to kick us off for now.
I will. So Doug is probably going to log back in. And so I am actually going to introduce Pete Morano from South Jersey Gas. South Jersey Gas is our sponsor of today's membership meeting, and Pete is their business development manager. Pete, what do you have to share with us today?
Hello, everybody. So most of you, many of you know me. I'm in the business development group with South Jersey Gas. My primary job was compressed natural gas vehicles, and that's what I do. I work with fleets. But my job's kind of morphed into sustainability and renewables as more and more of this climate change stuff seems to be permeating through the state and public opinion. So this has been very important to the gas utility for a lot of years. I mean, we started in 2014 looking at where we could reduce our carbon footprint, and that started with us converting our vehicles from gasoline and diesel to natural gas. We started building CNG stations. We now have 7 of them across South Jersey. The newest of which is in Cape May County. It is in Burley on Shunpike Road at the MUA transfer station. It's a public station. It's our first public station, and our vehicles, you'll see them rolling around. They'll say powered by natural gas. And more folks are changing to natural gas. So when we did that in 2014 using our conventional gas, we reduced our greenhouse gas emissions by about 17%. That wasn't good enough. Over the years, we're looking at other ways to reduce our carbon footprint, and working with the sustainable ability and renewable groups within our company. We started looking for different natural gas to fuel our vehicles and fuel our stations. So we have 7 stations throughout South Jersey. And 2 years ago, we started looking into changing that gas from conventional natural gas to renewable gas. And what does that mean? It's just gas that comes from landfills and from water treatment plants that's cleaned and put into the pipeline system. And we were able to acquire renewable natural gas for our CNG stations. So for those of you who have fleets out there and have a municipality or a commercial business that's interested in reducing your greenhouse gas emissions, this is a really cost-effective and good way to do that. So when we moved our vehicles from our conventional compressed natural gas to our RNG, we reduced our total greenhouse gas footprint by about 40%. And the reason why this is all really important is that 41% of all the greenhouse gas emissions in the state come from transportation. They're transportation related. And for those of you who are running, like ACUA runs natural gas garbage vehicles. And the reason why this is important is because those heavy duty vehicles, while they comprise about 1% of all the vehicles riding around New Jersey, they comprise about 20% of all those on-road emissions. So it's a big chunk of all the greenhouse gas emissions that are just emitted throughout the state of New Jersey. If you have a trash truck and you're running a diesel trash truck, if you convert your vehicle to CNG and you fuel at our station on Shunpike Road or any of our other CNG stations that we own and operate, you're going to reduce your greenhouse gas footprint by about half. So it's a pretty big deal. We're hoping that you'll give us a call and take a look at it. They're cost-effective solutions. You try to do something electric on the heavy, medium, and heavy-duty side. Ours solutions are 10% premium over diesel or conventional vehicle. Electric vehicle is probably going to be twice. So we do have some programs. Partner Clean Energy, the Zero Now program. So feel free to contact us, and we'll be happy to help you. But we are concerned about the environment, as everyone is, and we are hoping that you would partner with us too and help us to clean up the air.
Thanks.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, Doug,
Back. Sorry.
Hey, Doug.
Massive commercial where the Zoom goes in and out. So that was me today. I apologize. But no, thank you, Pete, and thank you to South Jersey Gas for being a great sponsor of our lunch today. Welcome, everyone. It's my pleasure now to introduce and really welcome back Tom Bracken, who's president and CEO of the New Jersey State Chamber of Commerce. Tom and I were chatting before the call. You know, obviously Tom was with us in January, and Tom, the world changed a little bit since our last time there at the Reeds in January. So we appreciate you coming back and all your leadership, and the time is yours to give us an update of where we stand today. Thank you, Tom.
Okay, Doug, thank you very much. And I have my colleague, Michael Egenton, here with me, who will give you some information after I'm done giving you some information. I first of all want to thank Vicki and the Cape May Chamber. You know, we've been on this mission for many, many years to try to make New Jersey a better place. And Vicki, who was on our state chamber board, and the Cape May Chamber have been very, very strong and supportive partners of ours throughout this whole mission. And I think, Vicki, what we're about to embark on is going to make what we've done before pale by comparison. So we have a new mission that Vicki's part of, and I'll talk about that a little later. But I can't compliment Vicki and the Cape May Chamber enough for all the help they've given us over the years, and we look forward to that strong partnership as we move forward and get through this recovery stage, which is going to be critical for our state. So let me just tell you a little bit about the approach the state chamber has taken since the pandemic hit, and then we'll talk a little bit about where we are regarding the state, the current situation in the state, and some insights we have on some federal issues that are starting to come into play. At the very outset of the pandemic, we realized that this was going to be a very, very different kind of environment. And so we took the initiative and the approach that everything we were going to do was going to be factually based, passing on as much information as we could to our members and to the regional chambers around the state to give those organizations the facts without any anecdotal information, without any opinions, so that they could then formulate their policies going forward and decide what they wanted to do, ask questions that we might help clarify. But we made it very clear to everybody, and we've stuck to that we are going to disseminate factual information as timely and as much as possible. We have, from day one, sent out a daily messaging to our members and the regional chambers. Some days we send out 2, but we've been very diligent about doing that. And one of our colleagues, Laura Gunn, has been very, very helpful in putting all that together and keeping everybody updated. And the reason we wanted to do that is I've been fortunate to be on a few committees that have given us access to information that you might not otherwise have. I was chosen to be the New Jersey representative on the U.S. Chamber National Task Force, which was one person from every state to deal with the recovery process, the restart and recovery process. The information I get there has been absolutely invaluable, and we've brought a lot of that back to the state. Also, our governor, combined with the 7 other Northeastern governors in a regional compact to deal with the restart and recovery on a regional basis. And the heads of the state chambers in all those states got together. And we also have periodic meetings to support what our governor's doing with a regional compact and find out what their other states are doing to be able to kind of put together a best practices program for information and passing on to members and the regional chambers. Also, as Vicki I was chosen to be on the I guess it's called the Restart and Recovery Advisory Council. I believe that's what it's called. We're on different committees, but that's been also something that's been ongoing for, I guess we're probably in our 6th week of that. And that's enabled me and Vicki and other members of that council to get valuable information from about 240 people who are on different councils on a combined basis. So another very valuable source of information. And then 3 times a week, starting at the beginning of the pandemic, the governor's staff had about 20, 25 people every other day on a conference call to get updated, to get feedback, to have conversations about what was going on. That has now been whittled down to 1 day a week because, we've gotten through a lot of the initial problems and are now into a recovery phase. So we have those meetings once a week, but we still have access on an ongoing basis with the governor and his staff. So all of those outlets allowed us to get a lot of good information as to what was going on, both stuff that was made public and things that weren't as public. And we've passed all that on every day to our members and the regional chambers. But from day one, I think you all realize, because you're all getting inundated with emails and webinars and Zoom meetings, and there's endless opportunities to connect with people who are having these meetings with guest speakers. And a lot of those have been very good, but there is just an enormous number of these. And you could spend your whole day going to Zoom meetings if you wanted to. And a lot of the information, I've been on a couple that are very contradictory. So, it's a matter of picking and choosing the right ones of those to keep yourself factually updated because of the different opinions people have on ways to do things. But from day one, the state chamber has really had a mission on 3 topics. And those 3 topics were the topic of the safety of businesses, the potential liability of businesses, and probably the most important, which was where is the capital, the working capital, the lending capital, where's the capital going to come from to finance businesses during the recovery stage? So we have not deviated from day one on that. We've been very diligent in talking to the governor's office about all those things. We feel that everything else that is out there, like how you restart your business and all that, is very important. But none of that's going to matter if businesses don't feel safe, if they're not sheltered from liability, and most importantly, if they don't have the working capital to survive during the recovery stage. So those have been our missions. We've taken them to the U.S. Chamber Task Force and gotten a lot of support for all those, and we have been able to, I think, effectuate some results based on our input. We're still fighting all those. Just to update you on each of those, though, the governor last week, or I think it was last week, maybe it was early this week, I'm losing track of time, came out with a program called One Jersey Pledge, which is basically the safety mandates that the governor and the state are going to impose on businesses as they open. A business does not have to meet these, but they are, if they don't meet those standards, when and if the federal government provides safe harbors from frivolous lawsuits, you will not be covered by those safe harbors. So the One Jersey Pledge is a very simple, straightforward pledge of employers, business owners, and employees as to what they will do to make the businesses and the retail stores a safe place for customers and employees. And again, if you're not familiar with One Jersey Pledge, you should find out about it because it's very, very straightforward. It's easy to comply with. It's sort of like mom and apple pie, but you need to comply with those if you're going to be covered if and when liability safe harbors come into play. So that's something I think you should all look at and adhere to. We are also pushing for the state to come out with safe harbors from a liability standpoint. I can tell you, and I don't know if there are any trial lawyers on the call here, Vicki, but the trial lawyers are chomping at the bit about the potential for lawsuits based on somebody, an employee or a customer walking into a business and contacting the disease and then blaming it on the business and suing them. So there's all kinds of lawsuits like that. There's lawsuits that are involved with the PPE equipment, which is the masks, the gloves, and the gowns, and so forth. The product liability lawsuits are out there. So there are a lot of different liabilities that need to be covered. And that's why from day one, we were very diligent in pushing for those safe harbors. And they haven't happened yet, but we know they're in the current legislation that's going to the Senate. and hopefully they will happen on a federal basis. And we hope to get some traction with regard to those on a statewide basis. Regarding the financing, I'm sure you're all very aware of all the loan programs and the grant programs that have been outlined by both the state and the federal government. The federal government's two major programs are the PPP program, which maybe some of you have applied for and received. But the problem with that was that only about 20% of the people who applied for PPP loans got PPP loans. And now that they've been lent, the forgiveness aspect of that was problematic. And we were very forceful with many other organizations in signing letters to get the PPP forgiveness and criteria for forgiveness extended to make it much more palatable for companies. And that has been adopted and was signed by the president. So any of you who do have a PPP loan, it's going to be a lot easier for you to comply with the criteria that's going to allow you to have that loan in part or in total forgiven, which was the intent from day one. We're also, with regard to that, pushing for any company who borrowed $150,000 or less with regard to the PPP to have those loans forgiven without going through the 12-page document and the legal expense that's out there to have those loans forgiven. That's being pushed through the Congress right now. Hopefully there'll be some results of that. But again, we think it's very important that the smaller businesses who avail themselves of that loan don't have to go through the expense of proving forgiveness, but just to have the loans forgiven and let's move on. So that's what we're pushing with regard to the balance of the PPP. There's a new program that you all should be aware of that started Monday called Main Street Lending, which is really geared to a little bit larger than the small business community. Minimum loan size is $250,000. It's a loan program that goes through the banks, but the Federal Reserve is going to buy 95% of those loans from the banks. So basically the Federal Reserve is the lender here. And if you're not aware of those and you're still in need of financing, any state or federally chartered bank are the providers of those loans. I'd go there. I'm assured by John McQueenie of the New Jersey Bankers that every bank in the state of New Jersey is going to take part in that lending program. So if you're in need, go there. It's more of a traditional bank loan, but there are very lenient payment terms, and the interest rate is quite low. So please understand that there's a lot of money available there if you need it. But notwithstanding that, getting back to the capital problem, with all the grants that have been given by the state, the EDA, and the loan programs of the EDA, and the SBA, and the federal program, as I said before, only about 20% or less of people who applied for grants or loans got any money, which means that 80% had their expectations high and were left at the curb. And that's why I keep talking about the fact that now, as we get into the recovery, those same people who needed money to survive now need money for recovery, and there's no apparent place for that to come from. The EDA does not have the capacity to lend anywhere near the money needed. The state government does not have that capacity. The federal government programs have been somewhat problematic. So we are trying to find ways to tap some liquidity around the state of New Jersey to provide lending outlets for companies so that every company has the ability to find a source of loan that they can apply for with confidence that they'll get it. That's a mission we've been on from day one. We're still on that mission. It's really kind of very disappointing to me that the state has not picked up on that and really pushed that because we are at a point right now where things are opening and people have concerns. I know they have money concerns. They have to buy inventory. They have to hire people. They have to physically change their facilities. All that takes money. And the money is not readily apparent as to where that's coming from. So I won't beat a dead horse on that, but that's a mission we're on, and it needs to be addressed if we're going to be able to recover satisfactorily. We also, in the context of helping businesses, started a program called Buy New Jersey, which is basically saying if you're a business right now, you're going through a very introspective look at your company. You're looking at everything, the number of people that are needed, the facility that's needed, what kind of inventory I need. You're looking at your process and your procedures. So one of the things we're saying is, why don't you also look at your vendor list and see if there are companies that you're buying from that are not New Jersey companies that you could find in the state to buy from New Jersey companies to help with their revenue, which helps the whole state. And also to have consumers do the same thing. Buy locally, buy from retail stores in New Jersey, and keep the money in the state, because revenue for a company has the same impact as borrowing, because eventually revenue translates to cash flow, which is the money you need to survive on. So we're pushing very hard on the Buy New Jersey campaign. The governor is aware of it, and he publicly endorsed it on one of his press conferences. So you'll see more of that from us going forward. But it really is a primary way to help our companies in New Jersey survive during the recovery stage. To get our message across, we have kind of taken our playbook back about 10 years and brought all the regional and local chambers together in a compact that we formed about 3 weeks ago. Vicki is part of that. It is getting some traction already, and the mission of this organization is simply to be able to have all the chambers have weekly dialogue, talk about their issues, talk about their opportunities, see if other chambers can help, bring up issues that they have that we can help them with in Trenton, get local support for issues that we're promoting on a grassroots basis with your local legislators. It's really just a very open communication by a bunch of organizations with a common mission and who have the health of their local communities, the health of their regions, and the health of their state at the front of their mind. And I think the more we move forward, the more traction we're going to get with this group, the bigger the group's going to become, and eventually it'll have, I think, a significant impact in helping the recovery. So that's something that we are growing right now, and our third meeting will be next week. And I have a lot of hope that that's going to develop into something that's very significant to help our economy rebound. So where are we with regard to the state? I would be very honest in telling you our state is behind most other states. We started late. I would be very open and tell you that I'm very complimentary of the governor in how he handled the medical part of our crisis. He's been very, very diligent and straightforward, and he has really taken a big mess. We were the second worst hit state in the country, and we are now, with all the trends, trending downward to be one of the better states in the country. He's done a phenomenal job on dealing with the medical crisis. But at the very beginning of the medical crisis, we started talking about, we got to walk and chew gum at the same time. And what I meant by that is we need to start planning for the economic impact of this medical crisis now. We don't have to implement anything now, but we have to start planning for it, because if you plan after things have settled down, you're losing time, and with regard to businesses, time is money. So I would be very critical. I have been, and I will continue to be critical of the governor and his staff for being a little slow to pull the trigger on that. They started to pull the trigger on that with the formation of the Resource and Recovery Committee, which was about 21 people, some of which are national figures, many of which are not New Jersey residents. And then the formation of the councils that Vicki and I are on, which I think are going to be helpful, but I'm not sure they're going to have as much impact as they would have had if they had started earlier. So the governor started late, and the reason we're behind is because of the significance of the pandemic we had to face. And also in my work with the U.S. Chamber, one of the things that is very, very obvious to me that I think is working to our detriment here is New Jersey has a three-legged stool of the legislature, the governorship, and the business community. The business community, as Vicki knows, because we keep talking about the business community being getting a seat at the table with those other two organizations to really start to promote the economic policies of New Jersey. That has not happened. It's been a need to know basis from the governor and the legislature more than a collaborative basis. Other states are much more collaborative, and the ones that have a good, solid relationship are the ones that are further along in the recovery process. So it's going to add fuel to our fire about making that collaboration stronger. The group that I talked about that we're forming with all the chambers is going to push very hard for that because it's needed, and it'll help us right now, and it will also help us in the future. But those are the reasons I think we're behind. It looks like we're catching up because the governor's making announcements that we're going into phase 2 and phase 3 is only a few weeks away. But I would make the analogy that all that glitters is not gold. When the governor talks about opening, you then have to look at the restrictions that are on opening, and it's sort of an opening with an asterisk, and it's not the full opening people want. So the headline is greater than the implementation, and the headline is greater than the impact it's having. And the governor is very firm on what he's doing. He has not budged at all on anything he's opened. For instance, he opened outdoor dining. He announced that on June 1st and said it's going to be available June 15th because the restaurants need 2 weeks to ramp up. My comment to the governor was, if you're saying it's safe to open on June 1 and a restaurant says they're already ready to open, why do they have to wait 2 weeks? He wouldn't budge. Mary Lou Halverson, who runs the Restaurant Association, said, well, Governor, just budge a little and let us open on June 12th as opposed to June 15th because the 12th is a Friday. It gives us a weekend in the summer to be open. He wouldn't budge on that. So they're very, very firm when they take positions. And quite frankly, the more firm they are, the more pain that's out there. The biggest fear I have is, I don't think anybody knows the economic pain the state is going through. You all in Cape May County might because of the tourism problem. You feel enormous pain because you're impacted by a lot of the things that haven't been opened. But around the state, and my impression of watching the press conferences is there's no real handle on the overall size of the economic pain in New Jersey. But a couple things should indicate how much pain there is. 28% of the workers of New Jersey have filed for unemployment. 28%. And I just read where 20% of the restaurants in New Jersey are out of business. So there are indicators all over the place about how bad this pain is. And I'm not sure we're going to realize how deep the pain is until we get into it. And then it might be too late. So we are pushing the governor all the time to do things faster. I know that the recent flare-ups around the country in Oklahoma and Arizona and Texas are not going to help the issue of opening faster because the governor does not want to have a flare up here. But I think there's a compromise that can be made, and we're pushing for that. But again, the governor's holding pretty firm. Now, on top of all that, we have another issue that I think you all should be aware of, that is the state budget mess we're facing. The state budget is looking at anywhere from a $5 to $10 billion deficit. The governor wants to borrow money to fill that gap, and he wants to do that without taking any efficiency moves with regard to the state government, which I think any government can be more efficient, but there's no attempt by the governor to do that right now. Borrowing is going to be problematic because borrowing debt has to be paid back. And if we borrowed $10 billion over the life of that loan, the number I read is the state would have to pay back in total with interest about $70 billion. That's a big number. $70 billion is 25% or 20% of our state budget. That's a lot of money to pay back over time. And so I think the Assembly is backing the governor with that. The Senate is going to do some significant pushback to make him really justify why that money is needed. And I think that's a very good move. But there are, I think it goes without saying that we're going to have to borrow something to fill a budget gap because constitutionally the state has to have a balanced budget. And the fear I have is whatever's left of the government after they borrow and they maintain services, no matter how well the business community does to recover, if the state isn't healthy, the business community will have difficulty in operating. So it has to be the healthy state, the healthy business community together if we're going to make this thing work. And I think the battle that's going to go on in Trenton with regard to the budget is going to be somewhat debilitating, probably somewhat political. It is political, but you know, that's still has yet to play out. So I would say in general that there's an enormous hill to be climbed. The more collaboration we can put together to help go up that hill, our regional chamber coalition that we're putting together, us getting more attention from the governor and the legislature, the governor and the legislature working more collaboratively, all of that needs to happen if we're going to make New Jersey, if we're going to get New Jersey back to some sense of economic stability. And I don't know when or where that's going to start. It hasn't started yet. It's got to start. It's got to start soon. And we're going to be promoting that. One other thing before I let Michael talk about some of the legislative issues. One other thing happened during this pandemic, which was the George Floyd murder. And as you all know, that threw a monkey wrench. That's probably a bad term. I'll take that back. That threw an enormous challenge into everything we're doing. It raised a lot of issues regarding the inequality opportunities of the minority community, and it has gotten the national attention. The U.S. Chamber is putting together a national task force to deal with that. We are very fortunate that my good friend and Vicky's good friend and one of our fellow board members of the Chamber, John Harmon, is on the national committee. And John and I are going to work to bring into New Jersey some inequality opportunity mitigants to try to be a model for other states in addressing this issue. It's going to impact a lot that happens in New Jersey, I will guarantee you that. So we're going to try to take the lead on that and come out with some things that will help the minority community regarding education, employment, entrepreneurship, and some of the other things that are going to be dealt with at the national level. So just a heads up that you're going to be seeing a lot of that going forward. And anything that we can do there is going to be productive and a benefit to our state. So, Vicki, I will shut up and turn it over to Michael regarding some legislative issues, and then maybe we can open it up for questions.
Sounds good. Mike Egenton, Executive Vice President of the State Chamber of Government Affairs, give us some updates on some legislative initiatives in the state, please.
Thank you, Vicki and Doug, and thanks for allowing us to present. I'm going to be really brief. The centerpiece of what is going on right now and for the next several weeks, especially this time of year, is the budget, as Tom talked about. I am the Executive Vice President with the State Chamber, but I'm also the Chief Lobbyist. We'll allow ample time to open up if any of the participants have questions about any particular bills that are floating around. So when COVID-19 first hit back in March, the state froze almost $1 billion in spending due to the uncertainty of what was going to happen, and also in anticipation that the tax filing deadline was going to be pushed back. The legislature and the governor signed the Fiscal Mitigation Act, Senate Bill 2338, delaying tax filings to July 15th and creating a 3-month extension for the FY20 budget. We don't think the FY20 budget's going to actually look that bad in the end. It's the FY21 state budget that technically starts on July 1st and runs to June 30th of next year that we're worried about. Recently, the state treasurer issued a budget update on the financial conditions of the state budget, and the state says it's facing a combined revenue shortfall of almost $10 billion between now and next June, and almost $3 billion in FY20 budget, and a little over $7 billion in the FY21 state budget. To help offset the shortfall, the governor has already ordered the transfer of the entire $421 million rainy day fund to the general fund balance and has implemented a statewide hiring freeze. As of yet, the proposed additional 3-month budget does not include any revenue raisers, but that's as of yet. That has to be closed very shortly. The report that was issued by the treasurer also proposes significant budget cuts. They're looking at roughly 1.3 billion in proposed appropriations, 3.2 billion in cuts or delayed first quarter appropriations, and a withdrawal about 850 million in proposed spending priorities for FY21. And I'm sure many of you have heard some of those deferments include the September pension payment, the New Jersey Transit base subsidy, school aid payment, payments for consolidated municipal tax relief, energy tax receipts, and on and on. Legislation, Assembly Bill 4175, that would give Governor Murphy the authority to borrow billions of dollars that Tom talked about to help offset projected revenue losses brought on by the pandemic, did clear the Assembly in a party line vote, 51-28. However, the future of borrowing proposal remains in question. The legislation that was passed in the Assembly has yet to be introduced in the Senate. And Senate President Steve Sweeney has raised several concerns, including how the proposed borrowing could impact state taxes that many residents already consider too high. And additionally, on top of that, the Republicans are threatening to sue if the measure advances further. And they're arguing it violates tight restrictions on debt and spending that are written into the state constitution. As currently drafted, the bill allows for up to $5 billion in state general obligation bonds to be issued without voter approval in response to the pandemic. In addition, it allows the administration to borrow money through a Federal Reserve lending program that has been set up to help governments struggling to absorb pandemic-related revenue losses. Finally, just real briefly, regarding the UI fund that Tom talked about, in the 13 weeks since COVID-19 shuttered New Jersey businesses and sidelined workers, 1.24 million employees, as Tom said, 28% of the current labor workforce have filed for unemployment benefits. The state saw 26,392 initial claims for the week ending June 13th, a 14% increase over the prior week. During the height of the pandemic in late March, nearly 215,000 initial unemployment claims flooded into the Department of Labor in a single week. New Jersey is also planning to borrow $1.7 billion from the federal government to cover the cost of paying out unemployment claims through October. The state will submit the borrowing request by July 1st, and the loans are interest-free through the end of the calendar year. That's my brief update. I wanted to leave enough room for the participants to ask both Tom and myself questions. As I said, if there are specific bills that you have inquiries about, now is a good forum to bring them up. Thank you, Vicki.
Thanks, Mike. So if anyone has any questions, you can post them in the chat or raise your hand. Happy to take questions. While you're thinking about that, I just like to start with a question about, spending, and in particular with advertising for tourism in the state. I know that they put a pause on any promotion for the state. There hasn't been anything as far as advertising during the pandemic. And I don't think that there's any plan to do anything in the near future. We received a report that the estimation on the collection of the occupancy tax is severely reduced. And so one of the things that in the tourism community that we've been advocating for is an emergency tourism promotion that was similar to what was done after Superstorm Sandy. And we'd certainly like to talk to you about getting your support behind that as well. It was a $25 million campaign after Superstorm Sandy. And we think that we're really going to need that in the aftermath of coming out of this pandemic as well.
Vicki, I would tell you that tourism is an industry which is so vital to New Jersey, and it has been shockingly not addressed. I don't know why. In all the meetings I've had, when tourism is brought up, it just doesn't get the attention that some other industries does. And if you're going to have a campaign, you can count us in to support that 100%.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. we're very concerned about the DMO funding being protected as well as the cooperative marketing grants. Let's see. Yes. So I don't know who this is. Econ Lynn, if you want to raise your hand, you can. Nina, you want to give the instructions for how to raise your hand?
Yeah, I did just unmute that person, Vicky, so that they can ask their question out loud. But just for everyone else who may be thinking about asking a question, the way that you raise your hand is to click on the Participants tab in your Zoom toolbar, and then you'll see the option to raise your hand. Or if you're calling on a touch-tone phone, you can dial *9. That will put you in the queue to ask a question.
Okay, so you can go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, this question's for Mr. Bracken. Mr. Bracken, Eric Conklin from the Cape May County Herald newspaper. I have a couple questions. Two I wanted to ask. I wanted to backtrack to January's discussion where you talked about Opportunity New Jersey, the coalition that you helped create and co-chair. And I remember you were discussing about how it was created and the fact that it had addressed the business community and what needed to be done to essentially create a stronger economy in New Jersey. My question is do you think that master plan that Opportunity New Jersey has been advocating for is now further delayed because of this crisis from being implemented in any way?
The answer is yes. And I will tell you, Opportunity New Jersey, we put that on hold for a while because the master plan we had and the policies that we were going to promote or we were promoting just don't fit right now in a recovery stage. So we made the decision that it was time to put that on a hiatus. It's still there. We'll kick it back up when the time is right. But what we really shifted to was this group of regional chambers, which I think will have much more impact to get our economy back to a recovery than Opportunity New Jersey would. So we did shift. It's not something that's going to go away, but it's just not the right time to promote the policies we had there.
Okay. And then I had another quick question. I believe you had said something about discussions with the governor. I could be wrong, but I was going to ask, have you had any recent discussions with the governor regarding the economic recovery, recent being like maybe last week as of this week, or have you had any like thorough discussions at least recently with him? And if you have, I was wondering if you could kind of provide some insights about what was discussed and what some of the issues were that you had addressed with them. If you happen to speak.
No physical contact, but I've texted back and forth with the governor, and I would never breach the confidentiality of those texts. But we do have also ongoing conversations with his chief deputies of staff. We've had several meetings with his chief of staff, George Helmy. And the issues we talk about are the pace at which the economy is being opened. That's our number one concern. You know, the medical issue is waning. It's time to deal aggressively with the economic situation. And almost all of our conversations have that as a central theme.
Thank you very much. So I don't see any other questions in the chat, and I'm not seeing any other raised hands. So Tom and Mike, thank you so much for your comments today. Very informative. And most of all, we appreciate all you're doing to advocate for the business community throughout the state. Doug?
Thanks for your partnership, Vicki.
Absolutely. Thank you for your kind words. Very much appreciated. And Doug, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Yep. And echo Vicki, Tom, and Michael, thank you so much for your information today. Very good. Took a bunch of notes, a lot of useful information. Greatly appreciated. A couple quick things from the chamber standpoint. John Kelly, are you available? A quick marketing and membership report for us?
Sure. Thank you, Doug. It's great to join everyone in today's meeting.
With respect to the membership, as Mr. Bracken alluded to, and we all know that there's been some challenging financial times for everyone, but I can report with respect to membership that after a significant bump in the road for the chamber, specifically around the April timeframe, membership has really started to rebound for the chamber in terms of renewals and onboarding of new members. I think that's indicative of two different things. One, the great work that the chamber's been doing on behalf of the business community, and two, businesses I think are starting to see a little more cash flow and see a light at the end of the tunnel. And so I think that's why we're seeing some good rebounds in terms of membership. That being said, I do want to introduce to everyone on today's meeting the newest members of the chamber that have come on board since our last meeting, the third Thursday of May. It's Cape Islands Realty. Also, Caldwell Banker James C. Otten Real Estate, Titan Gas and Power, Gallery de May in Cape May, and the Ravioli House in Wildwood. So we wanted to welcome those new members to the chamber, and we encourage you to reach out in any way to do business or to greet them and welcome them to the chamber. So we welcome them. Just a quick marketing report. Let everybody know that we have really, ramped up our efforts as best as we can with respect to starting to promote tourism again, now that most things are starting to open up, and that really is the distribution of our vacation guide and our communications with the visitor through email and social media, just letting people know what's open, how to take advantage, all the great open spaces we have here, and get people coming in a safe way to help support the businesses. We are running a pretty extensive Facebook campaign for the next 30 days to reinforce all that with some great imagery of the Jersey Cape to keep that in everybody's mind. You'll see on your screen, I just wanted to mention, while we still have to meet virtually until we get back face-to-face, there are some ways to promote your business and do some upgraded networking. Again, today's great sponsor, South Jersey Gas. You can sponsor our webinars and our virtual meetings to get your brand and your message out in front of a group of local business people, and also take advantage of exposure that our daily email newsletter gets. All these three items have really gotten some great participation. So it really is a good, and I'll mention, affordable way to promote your business and do some upgraded networking. You'll see the website and my email on there, get some information about the opportunities, and you can always communicate with me about questions or scheduling. Finally, I'll just say that I encourage everyone to log in to the Chamber's Member Center. Most of you know what that is. You have your login and your password, and we really urge you to update your listing on the Chamber's website. We've gotten a lot of people looking at that, and we've been using it to let people know what's going on with our members' businesses. So the more update that is, the better we can help promote our members. If you need any help with that, you can always contact myself here at the Chamber or anyone else on the team, Rachel Ertl, our Member Services Manager, and we'll help you get through that. But it really is vital and crucially important now to have that information updated, take advantage of everything. So with that, turn it back to you, Doug. It's been my pleasure to report today. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, John, for all your hard work. And Vicki, President's report, please.
Thanks, Doug. And I'm really glad to have Tom and Mike here to see this. I just want to tell folks that weren't with us yesterday that we kicked off the Safely Together campaign. As everybody knows, Cape May County submitted a proposal to the governor for reopening Cape May County. We were the first in the state to do something like that. And to go along with that, yesterday we kicked off the Safely Together campaign. This is a marketing effort that goes along with that campaign. This is geared to remind everybody about social distancing and wearing masks, and so how we are going to go about our business and be out in public, and but to do that safely. So these are some downloadable images that you can get from the Safely Together website. Use them in your email signatures, on your websites, in your social media promotion. There are stickers, there are posters that will be available to you. The Chamber is helping the county through the task force in distributing all of these. And there are also downloadable images on that website. So if you need any assistance, feel free to contact us. And we'll be happy to help you. But we're really excited about this. Television ads have started, so you'll be seeing those. Billboards are going up. Joe Molyneux is on the webinar with us today. Joe, give a wave so everybody can see you. Joe will be helping to distribute these materials as well, and we want everybody to use these materials in your business and help get these materials out, and use the Cape Manians with your industry. Cape Manian, if you don't see one that fits your business, let us know. We're going to try to get as many created if it's not already created, and we want your feedback. Let us know what you think about it. So the next program that we have coming up is Tuesday, June 23rd at 10 a.m. on Zoom. We're hosting a webinar about the PPP forgiveness program that will include Cheryl Painter from the SBA and Lou Bongiovanni from Fitzpatrick, Bongiovanni and Kelly. And then on June 29th, we have a joint networking mixer with the Chamber of Commerce of Southern New Jersey. That'll also be on Zoom. So we hope that you'll join us with that. And Doug, that's all I have today. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Vicki. So in closing, to John's point, there's a lot of great opportunities right now with sponsorship programs of our, obviously we're all meeting virtually now, but again, a big thank you to South Jersey Gas today. I think it shows the opportunity you have to get your business out in front of folks. So we have a great chamber staff. They've been doing a lot of really hard work behind the scenes, and you've seen, I think everyone on this call can appreciate Vicki's team and all the great things they've done. So we very much need your support, and sponsoring one of these webinars is a great way to do that. So please consider that. Also, our yard signs, I believe Tom Paraski's on the call today, but we'd love to get that donation over to Cape Regional, their foundation. So I believe Vicki told me we have about 45 signs to go. Please jump on that website and buy those remaining signs for us. Obviously, we have a lot of folks traveling to town, and we want to show our support to our first responders who deserve that. So again, thank you to everybody today for jumping on our virtual lunch call. Thank you, Tom and Michael, great information. And we will see you soon. Thank you, team.